Top 10 Best Recent TV Comedy Series. Before starting, I might want to specify that I have made a few references to legislative issues in the rundown. However, also, it's a major however, that is the thing that she said. The notices are not under any condition incendiary or questionable. Under ordinary conditions it wouldn't be essential, yet parody, more so than any class, has, over the most recent 10 years, gotten corrupted with political conclusions, and outside of Washington intellectuals, who needs that? A couple of shows on the rundown are ambiguously political, yet when they are it is accomplished for parody. In all cases, the chuckles are the main need. 10:30 Rock, 2006–2013. This underestimated parody held some fantastically entertaining minutes, one of which is obvious in the clasp above. One of the fundamental stars, Jenna Maroney, has featured in a film with such an awful title nobody else can work out what it is called, and they can't utter a word on the off chance that they affront her. It's silly. She sings about the film in a later scene as well. The initial line, the Irma Merman Lehrman murder, turned the Bird's reality startling, and it deteriorates from that point. Extraordinary stuff from the exceptionally gifted on-screen character Jane Krakowski, who was Emmy selected for the role. The show is named for 30 Rockefeller Plaza, where the NBC studios are found, and is about a NBC parody appear and the goings-on of the cast and group. It stars the splendid Tina Fey of SNL distinction, who likewise composed the show, and Alec Baldwin as the clever and peculiar supervisor of the group who concocts numerous comical preservationist jokes that cause a lot of twofold taking from the remainder of the cast. He is, believe it or not, the best piece of the show. He summarizes himself in one statement: business doesn't get me down. Business gets me off. 9. How I Met Your Mother, 2005–2014. EIL Patrick Harris. That is reason enough to observe How I Met Your Mother. In this unbelievably well-known satire, the characters who aren't Neil Patrick Harris spend the show hanging out and doing the things that companions do, becoming inebriated, getting laid. Valid for Neil Patrick Harris, less so for the others, and by and large being wonderful. Neil Patrick Harris plays a smooth-talking womanizer who generally gets the young lady and attempts to support his closest companion, Ted, do likewise, basically by suggesting he wear a suit and copy. As a matter of fact, Neil Patrick Harris, the show was named for an astonishing 30 Emmys and won 10. Neil Patrick Harris won the honor for Favorite TV Comedy Actor. Truly, they ought to have recently considered it the Neil Patrick Harris Appear. Is it safe to say that anyone was else even in it? Most interesting line, what do you anticipate? To meet some charming trip specialist while you're perusing a paper at a bookshop? None of those things exist any longer. Truer words were never expressed. On the off chance that the clasp above isn't sufficient, here are some of Neil Patrick Harris's best bits. What's more, here are some progressively best bits from Neil Patrick Harris. What's more, here are a couple of other best bits from Neil Patrick Harris. 8 Portlandia, 2011–2018. This is a satire production type show made by and featuring Fred Armisen, from Saturday Night Live notoriety, and Carrie Brownstein, chiefly a performer before the show publicized. The show is one long tenacious vacant joke of the elective ways of life which have made the city of Portland, Oregon, acclaimed. The dramas slice right deep down with regards to social issues, fearlessly ridiculing numerous present social mores and holy relics. The last season publicized in 2018 and exhibits how extraordinary ability can make political and social parody work these days. The show is so on point it might one day be appeared in colleges to outline the inquisitive movement of political talk in the US throughout the years it was running. A valid example, the most famous drama includes the proprietors of a women's activist book shop. The proprietors are the two ladies, yet one is played, unconvincingly, intentionally, yet cleverly, by Armisen. The show utilized a genuine women's activist book shop in Portland with the gift of the women's activist proprietors. Until 2 or 3 years back when, following 6 years of approving of it, the proprietors of the store understood that it was transphobic and taunting women's liberation. How it took them 6 years to understand that is impossible to say. Best line, each time you point I see a penis. Whether you are left or right, you will cherish this show. It prods the two sides in manners that annoy none, with the exception of women's activist book shop proprietors. It is splendid and extraordinary. In the event that the clasp above isn't sufficient, here's an entertaining one demonstrating what occurs in Portland on the off chance that you don't carry a reusable pack to the supermarket, and here's an allergy pride parade. 7. Schitt's Creek 2015–2020. The sun diminished the day that the last scene of Schitt's Creek circulated. It was a light, soft, fun, and added substance parody, and I challenge you to locate a solitary thing amiss with it. Made altogether during the years in which marathon watching was the standard, this show ticks each container, and it knew when the time had come to flip off the lights, a rule ailing in most TV programs nowadays. It stars the truly unmistakable Eugene Levy, the father from American Pie, as Johnny, and his genuine child Daniel, who plays his show child, David, and girl Sarah, who plays neighborhood server, Twylar. The show begins with the family losing the entirety of their huge riches because of assessment non-installment. The appointed authority who bankrupts them leaves them one resource, Schitt's Creek, an incapacitated town which Johnny purchased as a joke for David's birthday years sooner. It is an account of wealth to clothes, in the money-related sense, at that point clothes to newfound wealth, in the ethical sense. It would be ideal if you discover time to watch this arrangement, it truly is such a superb much-needed refresher in this day and age. Best line, goodness my God. EU David. 6. Will and Grace, 1998–2020. The first arrangement of Will and Grace was great, however its allure isn't as wide as most on this rundown. Also, unfortunately they harmed the brand by bringing it resurrected following 15 years to make a long political tirade of the show. All things considered, I am including it for the most part for the primary run as it truly needs to be referenced. The genuine feature of the show was the collaboration between Will's gay companion Jack and Grace's assistant Karen, who was incredibly wealthy and carried out the responsibility for no particular reason, not cash. Disregard Will and Grace, it ought to have been the Jack and Karen appear. Actually, while I feel that Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the best parody entertainer within recent memory, in my view, Karen from Will and Grace, Megan Mullally, is an exceptionally close second. Here is a reel of her most interesting moments. The Appear, for the individuals who live under a stone and don't have any acquaintance with it, is about Will, a gay legal counselor, and Grace, a straight-inside architect, who live respectively in Will's loft as companions, however with a bond nearer to that of a wedded couple, offering a send to many entertaining circumstances. The show was a hit, however less so the political patch-up from a few years back. It is as yet an extraordinary cut-of-life type parody worth viewing. 5. Arrested Development 2003 present. This show is simply exquisite. It is brimming with crazy and beautiful characters, from the insane Gob, articulated occupation, who needs to be a performer, to Tobias, the jumbled spouse of Portia de Rossi's character, Lindsay, who is a never naked and as unmistakably as gay in the show as his significant other as, all things considered. The particularity of the family is enhanced through the eyes of the level-headed, straight man character, the great entertainer Jason Bateman, as Michael, who is father to George Michael, the horny youngster who begins to look all starry-eyed at his cousin Maybe. The family is driven by the narcissistic mother Lucille and the businessperson father George, who is on the run because of offering model homes to Saddam Hussein when exchange with Iraq was illegal. The essential reason is that the relatives mess up and Michael goes around attempting to fix things. Numerous scenes spin around the family's subsequent business, a banana stand, and their unbalanced relationship with their Mexican hirelings. The cast is actually very splendid together, and the show is an all-out hit you'll need to return to over and over. It was so famous actually, that it has been resuscitated not once, however twice, in 2013 for one season and again from 2018 to the present. Indeed, even the Fonz turns up as the family's blundering tentatively sex criminal legal counselor. A. 4. Veep 2012–2019. Satire appear about Selina Meyer, the Vice President of the United States of America, that nobody truly loves. Republican? Democrat, who cares? In Veep, they're each of the a calamity, and the show deliberately doesn't mark the vice president with a gathering connection. With Seinfeld over, Julia Louis-Dreyfus required another vehicle for her astounding ability. She discovered it in Veep. She is blundering, impolite, politically mistaken. In one scene, her staff list every last bit of her monikers from the web: Grizzly Madam, She-Ra, Meyer the Liar, the Batcave Pissface. The Wicked Witch of the West Wing, Veep Throat, Voldemire, Dickless Van Dyke, Tawdry Hepburn, Blunder Woman, Vaselina, Betty Poop. The ungainliness of Selina truly shows most unmistakably in the clever communications among her and the Prime Minister of Finland, Minna Hakkinen, who, believe it or not, ought to have won an Emmy for her common job on the show. Then again, Lewis-Dreyfus' presentation won her 6 successive Primetime Emmy Awards, 3 Screen Actors Guild Awards, 2 Critics' Choice Television Awards, a Television Critics Association Award, and 5 back-to-back Golden Globe assignments. On the off chance that you've watched the show, you'll know why. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is maybe the most gifted female satire entertainer within recent memory. 3. Friends, 1994 to 2004. I needed to incorporate it, isn't that right? It's not my most loved, but rather Friends took the core of millions, and possibly billions, of individuals around the globe. The Ross and Rachel adventure kept individuals talking at the water cooler, and consistently the senseless remarks or characteristics of the characters entered reality and affected how we as a whole talked and carried on with one another. It is consistent with state that Friends, more than some other passage here, characterized a generation. The consideration was, shockingly, not that simple, as I was extremely near including Frasier rather, another most loved that at any rate gets a reward spot underneath. Be that as it may, there is no denying it, a rundown like this without Friends on it's anything but a rundown worth perusing. 2. The Office, US rendition, 2005 to 2013. Ricky Gervais? Meh. He's alright. That is to say, when he's going off, half-alcoholic, at the rapey Hollywood big names at the Golden Globes he's extraordinary, however something else, not really good or bad, and I realize I am going to disturb many individuals here, yet the US form of The Office is basically superior to the British one. It follows the adventures of the staff of Dunder Mifflin, an anecdotal paper organization drove by the unstoppable Steve Carell in his best job ever. There is minimal more to be said of this show. It is the one arrangement that the vast majority of you will have expected to see on this rundown, in light of the fact that a large portion of you will concur that The Office, in one of its national structures in any event, has the right to be on a rundown of the best parody TV arrangement. Goodness, and on the off chance that you need to encounter a second in which two universes crash, here's a clasp from The Office where Ricky Gervais, David Brent, chances upon Steve Carell, Michael Scott, outside the lift. 1. Curb Your Enthusiasm, 2000 present. Take a psychotic Jew who can't get anything right, in spite of each endeavor to do as such, a giddy closest companion with a profane blustering spouse, and a gathering of extraordinary, however blurred, satire entertainers from the 80s and 90s. I'm taking a gander at you, Ted Danson, Jason Alexander, and Paul Reiser, and you have Curb Your Enthusiasm. Made by Larry David, he's the psychotic Jew and he plays a fictionalized adaptation of himself, who made Seinfeld, and plainly based a significant part of the character of George on his own genuine endeavors and shortcomings. Curb Your Enthusiasm is to a great extent promotion lived, with the storyline being assembled ahead of time. The acting capacity of the astounding cast makes this work so well that you can't reveal to it isn't all splendidly scripted. The show is clever, cringy, thick, and thick-will social humor, similar to Portlandia. This show has a reasonably politically straightforward maker, be that as it may. Likewise, like Portlandia, it simply doesn't ruin the parody. Larry David is that acceptable. This is the means by which you make parody that doesn't require lecture. The show is absolutely no companion to each political position, however it is additionally not vituperative. It is getting more diligently to discover great comedies that don't make modest efforts. Curb Your Enthusiasm is the best. It will stand out forever, as I would see it, as being better than Seinfeld and the best satire TV arrangement at any point devised.